I'm off on a trip overseas with my mistress. Sold the house for $400,000.
The overly cheerful voice of my husband John made me instinctively ask, "What?" He called from the hospital, saying he sold the house for $400,000. What does that mean? That house was precious to me, inherited from my dad. And to openly declare he has a mistress? This is madness. What are you talking about? What about Whitney if you sold the house? As soon as I mentioned our daughter's name, John scoffed.
That brat. I've always found her annoying, acting all high and mighty. Of course I'm leaving her behind.
Such words about his own daughter. I was furious and shocked to hear he sold our house and plans to flee with his mistress. I must somehow stop John. Even if he says he sold the house, it can't be transferred that quickly. I have to do something. My name is Vivian, a 39-year-old housewife. I wish I could say I live happily with my husband John, a year older than me, and our 9-year-old daughter Whitney, but our relationship with John is far from harmonious. Since our marriage, John's personality has gradually twisted, and I've been suspecting his infidelity for a year now. Without proof, I've been unable to act, and John doesn't seem to hide his cheating. John works at a factory for a parts manufacturer and goes out drinking 4 or 5 nights a week after work. It's possible he goes out with work colleagues, but he didn't go out this often until a year ago. Moreover, John comes home smelling of unique perfumes and preparing luxury bags and shoes I've never seen as gifts. Of course, he never gives them to me, often leaving the house with them. I'm too scared to confront him about his infidelity, cowardly waiting for concrete evidence. He's a different person from the John I met. We met 10 years ago, dated for a year, and then got married. I was drawn to his kindness and gentlemanly manner, and before I knew it, I was in love. We got engaged on our first anniversary and married, with Whitney born soon after. It seemed like a happy marriage from the outside. But why has it come to this? It all started when Whitney turned 1. As Whitney turned 1 and became more active than ever, rummaging around the house, parenting became increasingly challenging. As a housewife, I was with Whitney all day long, but sometimes it was too much for me alone, and I started asking John, after work, to help with baths and meals. Initially, perhaps due to a sense of paternal duty, John helped as I asked, but as the days went on, he seemed to grow resentful and stopped engaging in childcare.
I've been thinking, isn't this your job? You're the housewife, so you should be able to handle childcare alone. Why should I, tired from work, have to help?
John's frustration exploded with those harsh words, and after throwing them at me, he left Whitney and me in the living room, quickly retreating to the bedroom alone. I tried to calm Whitney, now in the terrible twos, and throwing tantrums, even over getting into pajamas, while John's words painfully stabbed my heart. Afterward, John completely disengaged from Whitney. Even on his days off, when Whitney asked, "Daddy, let's play," John would respond,
"Playing is Mommy's job. I'm busy,"
while reading a magazine. He never tried to understand Whitney's feelings. When Whitney cried, he would snap,
"Hey, don't cry over this. What kind of parenting is Vivian doing? A housewife who can't even handle childcare? How incompetent."
Glaring at both Whitney and me. I didn't want Whitney to hear John's verbal abuse, so we retreated to our room, forced to play together. There were times I wanted to enjoy my hobbies, like reading or watching movies, but living constantly with Whitney left me with virtually no personal time. Yet John enjoyed his hobbies, while I endured his verbal abuse. It was so unfair. However, our household depended on John's income, so I couldn't complain. Without John, I couldn't provide for Whitney alone. I was angry at my own helplessness. So, John lived carelessly, indifferent to parenting. 8 years have passed since then, and Whitney is now 9. John's verbal abuse continues unabated, and the kind John I knew before our marriage is nowhere to be seen. I lived with John solely to support Whitney, avoiding provoking him as much as possible. Mom, you're so good at drawing. You should do it as a job. One day, while drawing together, Whitney suddenly said that. Do art as a job? Yeah, your drawings are so kind and wonderful. Whitney smiled brightly, looking at the animal illustrations I had drawn. I've always loved drawing, and even once aspired to be a manga artist. Although I realized halfway that it was impossible and gave up, I still drew illustrations as a hobby. I always show your drawings to my friends and brag about them. They all say they're amazing. I'm envious of you being able to draw like that, Mom. Despite having a twisted dad like John, Whitney grew up honest and straightforward. She's cheerful, the complete opposite of my introverted self. She seems to have many friends at school and is favored by her teacher. I felt so proud when Whitney complimented my painting. Knowing Whitney was watching me gave me confidence. Thank you. I'm so happy. When I said that, Whitney's smile bloomed like a flower. If Whitney can smile, I feel like I can keep going in this life. I quietly thought to myself. That night, John came home drunk as usual, stumbling into the living room as soon as he arrived. He was completely intoxicated. His drinking had been getting worse lately, to the point of concern. Sighing, I peeled off his jacket and checked his pockets. What's this? Usually there's nothing but keys in his pockets, but this time a piece of paper caught my eye. It was a receipt with what seemed to be a hotel's name on it. This is definitely proof of cheating. I had suspected his infidelity, but now I had physical evidence. Trying to calm my fluttering heart, I carefully tucked the receipt away on the shelf. I started thinking about how to confront John. The next day, still half drunk, John left the house. After Whitney went to school, I did the usual household chores, but I couldn't stop thinking about the receipt. I had suspected John's cheating, and not confronting him was my choice. But now, with solid evidence, it's hard to continue this false marriage. Within a week, or maybe even a few days, I want to make him admit his affair and apologize. How should I? As I was thinking, my mobile phone vibrated. Who could it be at this time? It's rare to get a call during the day. Checking the phone, it was an unknown number. A sense of foreboding, I answered. Hello, is this Mrs. John Simmons? Yes, speaking. Who's this? This is North Hospital. Mr. Simmons has been. The call was from the largest general hospital around. The hospital informed me that John had been brought in by ambulance, undergoing surgery for a kidney disease. They also said that his kidney is likely to fail and will need a transplant. Confused by this sudden news, the doctor asked if I was okay. Yes, a kidney transplant is possible, right? Yes, we'll start looking for a donor, and if we find a match, we can proceed with the transplant surgery. Although my mind was in chaos, hearing that John needed a kidney transplant, the doctor continued to explain about the surgery.
We'll check the compatibility with potential donors, so please cooperate.
I only half understood what the doctor was saying, but I knew John was seriously ill. Despite John belittling me and having affairs, I don't wish him dead. I hope he can be saved. That day, I spent the whole night thinking about John's transplant surgery. Weeks passed, and we found out the compatibility results for potential kidney donors, primarily within the family. Surprisingly, I was the best match. John's parents are alive, but in poor health, unable to undergo such a surgery. Being an only child and the healthiest, I, with the same blood type as John, was the best choice. It would be a lie to say I had no doubts. But John's life is irreplaceable. With that thought, I decided to be the donor for John's kidney transplant. When I explained John's condition and our transplant surgery to Whitney, "Got it, take care," she cheerfully said. During my hospitalization, Whitney would stay with John's parents. They're in poor health but capable enough to care for themselves at home. Whitney, close with her grandparents, was happy to go to Grandpa and Grandma's house. This should be fine for a while. It was a relief that Whitney is such a well-behaved child. With that assurance, I went through with the transplant surgery. A week later, after signing the consent form and undergoing health checks, I underwent the kidney transplant for John. The surgery was quicker than I expected, and I stayed in the hospital for about a week, John for 10 days. Fortunately, there were no complications, and our recovery was smooth. The day before my discharge, my mobile phone rang again. Wondering who it could be this time, I answered.
"It's me,"
a familiar voice said suddenly, startling me. It was John. Thinking he might be thanking me for being a donor, I asked, "It's been a while. How are you feeling after the surgery?" I expected him to say something like, "I'm better thanks to you, Vivian. Thank you." But his reply was unexpected.
"About our house."
John paused and then continued. Suddenly, he brought up the topic of the house, and I was thrown into disarray.
"I sold it for $400,000, and I'm going on a trip abroad with my mistress, Alexandra."
His voice was inappropriately cheerful, and I instinctively asked, "What?" He called from the hospital to say I sold the house for $400,000. What does that mean? That house was precious to me, inherited from my dad. And to openly declare he has a mistress? This is madness. What are you talking about? What about Whitney if you sold the house? As soon as I mentioned our daughter's name, John scoffed.
"That brat." "I've always found her annoying, acting all high and mighty. Of course I'm leaving her behind."
What a way to talk about his own daughter. I was furious and shocked to hear he sold our house and plans to flee with his mistress Alexandra. I must, somehow, stop John. Even if he says he sold the house, it can't be transferred that quickly. I have to do something. After John said, I sold the house, going on an overseas trip with Alexandra, the phone call abruptly ended. Confused, I tried to make sense of what had happened. But no matter how much I thought about it, I just couldn't believe he sold the house suddenly. Especially while I was in the hospital. Shocked, my condition worsened, and my hospital stay was extended by a few days. In my despair, I lay in bed alone, helplessly pondering the future. First, I should call Whitney. Without the house, Whitney and I have nowhere to return. It was infuriating enough that John boldly declared he has a mistress. but my primary concern was Whitney. I called my in-laws' house, and my mother-in-law Yasmin answered. She quickly handed the phone to Whitney. Hello, Whitney. I'm sorry. It looks like Mom's hospital stay got extended. Are you okay? Not too lonely? Also, I heard Dad sold the house. We have nowhere to go back to, right? Worried, I bombarded her with questions. Then Whitney replied cheerfully. Mom, it's okay. I've taken care of it. Taken care of it? Confused by her words, I was puzzled. Dad said he asked his mistress to sell the house, but actually, Grandpa and Grandma. Whitney detailed the events that had transpired during my hospitalization. I was stunned by the unexpected turn of events that had unfolded without my knowledge. So, Mom, rest easy, I'm fine. Thank you. Encouraged by Whitney's responsible words, I was finally able to calm down a bit. But if Whitney's story was true, what had become of John and Alexandra by now? Curious, I reminded myself that the rest was crucial and drifted off to sleep. 3 days later, fully recovered, I was discharged and headed to my in-laws' house. Mom, welcome back. Whitney ran up to me with a joyful face. Yasmin was smiling behind her. I'm glad for you. And John, he really did something unbelievable.
I'm sorry, Vivian.
My father-in-law Kevin apologized with a grim face. Despite having such wonderful parents, how did John end up so twisted? No, it's my fault for following along without saying anything. Please don't apologize.
Thank you. And, well, Vivian, there's something we need to tell you.
Yes, what is it? I sat down with Kevin and Yasmin, listening to their story with Whitney by my side. Though surprised again by their news, Yasmin's firm encouragement, we won't let John have his way, reassured me. After hearing from Kevin and Yasmin, I was about to head home with Whitney. When passing a real estate agency, I noticed a familiar man and an unfamiliar woman arguing with an agent. It was unmistakably John, and the woman with him must be Alexandra. John was in a tracksuit with messy hair, and Alexandra wore a short skirt with only one high heel, no makeup.
Hey, what do you mean the house can't be sold?
Yeah, what about my $400,000?
Well, the buyer canceled the purchase last night, so the contract is no longer valid. Huh? Why cancel? Damn it.
Seeing John stamping his feet and Alexandra shrieking at his side, passers-by turned their gaze in surprise. Whitney and I were also shocked, but realizing it was about us, we approached them. What are you doing here? Startled by my sudden voice, Alexandra let out a ridiculous, huh? Upon recognizing me.
What are you doing here? I get it. You're behind this, aren't you? You must have convinced the buyer not to go through with it.
Huh? This is unbelievable. What are you even talking about? As John and Alexandra hurled insults, I suddenly moved Whitney behind me to protect her. Confused, the real estate agent listened as I introduced myself as his wife. The agent responded with a bewildered,
Are you kidding me about the cancellation? Because of you. We had to turn back right before boarding the plane. And now we can't buy a new house. I even have debts from the money I spent on her.
John pointed at his mistress as he said her. I see. Finally, I understood John's intentions. John had tried to sell the house, which I had inherited from my late father, to pay off debts incurred from his spending on Alexandra, and to buy a new place for them to live. Such selfishness. Ignoring Whitney and me, he even tried to take away my most valuable asset. I was shaking with anger. Excuse me, but aren't you the one being disrespectful?
Coming out of nowhere and talking back to me? As if you could survive without me.
Despite the dire situation, John's continued insults were appalling. First off, did you really think you could sell my precious house without discussing it with me? I'm the owner. Did you forge the documents or something? And you've been bad-mouthing the home buyer. But that buyer was your own parents.
Huh? What do you mean?
Indeed. What Whitney had told me on the phone while I was hospitalized was that Kevin and Yasmin had pretended to buy my house as a plan to teach John a lesson. Having heard everything about John's misdeeds from Whitney, they were furious, saying, "How could he do this to Vivian and
our sweet granddaughter?"
Whitney's bright and honest nature had made her grandparents believe her over their son. Let me explain. Grandpa and Grandma got really mad when they found out about Dad and that woman. I knew Dad was trying to sell the house, so I talked to them. They said they wouldn't let it be sold so easily, since it's a special house Dad left for Mom. So before someone else bought it, they intentionally made a bid to buy it. Whitney stepped forward and boldly explained the situation.
Those guys, my own parents, doing this to me? Old parents. And you two, acting all high and mighty, just kids. Shows how badly Mom raised you.
John sneered crudely. Undeterred by John's attack, Whitney stood firm. I pulled out a piece of paper from my bag and thrust it in front of John's nose. Sorry, but we're getting divorced. John laughed through his nose at the sight of the divorce papers.
Divorce? You said it right. You're okay with divorcing? You think you can survive without me?
John must think that as a housewife, I'll be lost if we divorce. Indeed, that might have been the case before. But now, I had a secret plan. To shatter John's shallow thinking, I spoke up. Don't worry. I received a gift from your parents while they're still alive.
Huh? A living gift?
What's that? John and his mistress looked bewildered. This morning, Kevin and Yasmin told me they wanted to give me part of their assets while they were still alive. Their health was failing, and they weren't sure how much longer they had. Of course, I initially refused, suggesting they should give it to John. But Kevin and Yasmin insisted. We value you, Vivian, who gave us a lovely granddaughter.
More than a son who can't even thank her for donating an organ.
I expressed my gratitude and agreed to accept their living gift. It's your dad and Mom's wish. They said they wanted to give it to me, not you. John's face turned pale. Understandably so. He was losing the assets that should have been his to a wife he was divorcing.
That's dirty. That's not right. It's normal for children to inherit their parents' assets. I'll talk to them now. If they won't listen, I'll take it to court.
John glared at me with fiery eyes, shouting. I sighed at John's endlessly shallow thoughts. Maybe it's time to deliver the final blow. Stepping forward, I locked eyes with John and declared, You're talking nonsense. It all started with you, belittling me and even having a mistress, right? You're the one who spent the money. Kevin and Yasmin's decision is only natural. And do you even have the money to sue? Even if you did, how would your betrayals play out in court? A scream escaped John's lips. He trembled at the sight of me, now looking like a demon.
Sorry, I won't sue. Please forgive me.
His apology was desperate, but it was too late. I glared at John once more and delivered my final words. I'll make sure you pay for insulting Whitney and me. Alimony and child support, all of it. If you can't pay, I'll chase you to the depths of hell. Be prepared. John and Alexandra screamed and ran away. The real estate agent, who had witnessed everything, "Thank you," he said with a relieved posture. "No, I'm the one who should apologize for causing you trouble. With those words, I quickly left with Whitney, heading back home. Mom, you are so cool. Thank you, Whitney, for fighting for Mom. Despite the situation, Whitney's face was lit with a smile. I vowed in my heart to protect her for a lifetime. A few days later, I was able to successfully divorce John. It felt surreal that my long-endured marriage ended so easily with just a piece of paper. I wondered why I had tolerated it all for so long. John, having squandered his money on Alexandra, had to take out a loan to pay the alimony. Alexandra left him saying, "I can't be with such a poor man anymore." To add to his misfortune, John's company faced a sales decline due to material shortages and had to cut labor costs. Working in the factory, John was one of the first to be laid off. It's unfortunate, but I can't help but think there was a reason for his layoff. Probably those with poor performance and behavior were the first to go. John, who acted arrogantly at home, must have behaved similarly with his subordinates at work. Now, having lost his job, wife, and lover, John is barely making ends meet with part-time work. Without the energy to job hunt, he's settling for part-time jobs that allow him to work and rest at his leisure, probably leading to a bleak life. But I couldn't muster any sympathy for him. I gave John a part of my kidney and did everything I could. Yet he ridiculed me, and it seems like karma has caught up with him. He can sweat it out just to pay off his debts. As for me, I started working on illustrations, inspired by Whitney's compliment about my drawing skills. While the orders are still few, my customers praise my work as meticulous and skilled. I'm determined to increase my clientele and provide a good life for Whitney.
Well, well, everyone. Apparently our uneducated, plain Jane of a daughter-in-law will be singing for us. Come on, get on stage already, you ugly duckling. My mother-in-law snickered. It was my sister-in-law's wedding reception, and she ordered me to perform a solo. As usual, my mother-in-law always finds a way to belittle me. Her audacity to humiliate me, even on such a joyous occasion as my sister-in-law's wedding, is beyond my comprehension. What's taking so long? Hurry up! She's getting impatient, her voice hardening. Okay then, I will. Excuse me. I stood up from my seat and slowly headed towards the stage. My name is Erica, 33 years old. I live in a house with my 4-year-old daughter, Janice, and my husband, Paul, who's the same age as me. We're in our 8th year of marriage. I lost my parents when I was a child and was raised by my grandparents thereafter. However, I didn't want to be a burden to them anymore, so I dropped out of high school and got a job at a local factory. Paul and I went to the same high school, and we were reconnected at a reunion when we were 21. We hit it off and started dating. 3 years after Paul graduated from university, we got married. I've been supporting my husband, taking care of our household chores, and raising our daughter while working part-time since our marriage. Mom, teach me how to sing. Recently, Janice has been asking me that quite a lot. Neither Paul nor I have any intention of forcing music onto her. I like music. I was the president of the choir club in high school. I still love singing and even take voice training lessons as a hobby. When both Paul and I are at home, I often sing to his music, and perhaps that's why Janice naturally developed an interest in music. I want to sing beautifully like you do, Mom. Seeing her say this with a smile, I can't help but smile back. When I told Paul about this, he reacted with joy, saying, "It's a blessing that she's enjoying music." However, we agreed that it would be better for a professional to teach her the basics of singing, and decided to take her to the voice trainer I often visit the next day. I hope that one day Janice and I can perform together with Paul's music. With these happy thoughts in mind, I fell asleep that day. 3 days later,
When I returned home after shopping, my mother-in-law called. She started belittling me ever since she found out I dropped out of high school when I got married to Paul. To be honest, she isn't my favorite person. She often showers me with insults like, "Can't you even do that? You're so slow. Your parents were no good, huh? That's why you dropped out of high school, isn't it?" I wonder if she's going to say something nasty again. With feelings of apprehension, I answered a call from my mother-in-law. "Hello? Is Janice there right now?" "I'm sorry, she's at voice training right now. She's not home." After I said that, I realized I had let something slip, but it was too late. "Why didn't you tell me before letting her attend such things? You really don't think things through. I'll teach her." My mother-in-law, just like my husband Paul, graduated from a prestigious music academy as valedictorian. She's quite the accomplished musician. She dotes on our daughter and treats her with so much love. However, maybe because she was a valedictorian, she tends to take a condescending tone when it comes to music and education. Paul and his sister were both rigorously taught about music by her in the past, to the point where they began to despise it. I'm certain it would be the same even with her granddaughter. It would be a problem if Janice, who had just started taking interest in music, begins to hate it because of the condescending way it's taught. "Mother-in-law, I appreciate your offer, but I want Janice to have her freedom in this." "She won't improve if she's just playing around. Make her quit right now." "Even if you say that, it's really up to Janice. I can't force her to quit." "I'm sure it would be much better if I taught her." With that, she abruptly ended the call. 3 months passed, and I had almost forgotten about the incident when my mother-in-law decided to visit our home. "It's been a while, hasn't it? Oh, how's Janice been doing?" She was probably happy to see her granddaughter after such a long time. As soon as she stepped into our home, she immediately scooped Janice into her arms, barely greeting us. It just so happened that Janice had the day off from her voice training class, and the whole family was at home. "Granny, I've become good at singing," Janice exclaimed, boasting to her grandmother. "Really? Could you sing something for me then?" I was worried about what my mother-in-law might say to Janice, so I intervened. "How about we eat first before we hear her sing? It's lunchtime after all." Since it was noon, I tried to distract her by saying that, but "Don't interrupt when she's about to sing for me." My mother-in-law dismissed my suggestion with a single comment. "I'm sorry, Janice dear, can you sing for me?" my mother-in-law asked. Hearing her say that, Janice began to sing. From the perspective of a mother-in-law who graduated as the valedictorian of a music conservatory, my daughter's singing must sound rather clumsy. I had a sinking feeling inside me, worried that my daughter might get some snide remarks from her. However, my mother-in-law applauded and praised my daughter, saying, "You did well. You've practiced a lot," far from making any sarcastic comments. "Thank you, Grandma." My daughter seemed happy to be praised by her grandmother. I sighed in relief, thinking that even my strict mother-in-law wouldn't make snide remarks to her granddaughter.
"I thought Mom might say something, so I was a little scared,"
Paul whispered to me with a look of relief on his face. Nothing particular happened after that, but as the evening came, I realized that Janice had fallen asleep. "Excuse me, mother-in-law. Since Janice fell asleep, I'm going to take her to her room." I picked up Janice and carried her to her bedroom. After I put my daughter to bed, I returned to the living room. As soon as I returned to the living room, my mother-in-law said to me, "Didn't you think that Janice's singing today was terrible, Erica? It's a waste of money to let her go to a class that can only teach her to that level. I'll teach her myself." I guess that's what she thought after hearing my daughter singing today. But as I said before, we can't decide that without hearing what Janice has to say. "If you keep saying such soft things, that's all she will ever be able to sing." My mother-in-law seemed to have no intention of listening to me, whatever I might have to say. I asked Paul to say something, but when it came to music, he couldn't stand up to his mother, and he fell silent. About 5 minutes of silence followed, and it was Paul who gave in and said, "All right, Mom, go ahead and teach Janice to sing for a while." Hearing those unbelievable words from Paul's mouth, my mind went blank. Is this some kind of joke? Won't they care how Janice feels? After all, she has been so happy to be interested in music. What if Janice hates music because she's taught so strictly by her grandmother? Wait a minute, isn't that a bit too selfish? I confronted Paul as anger welled up within me. What can we do? When it comes to music, she's much better than me, and it's a fact that I got better by being taught by her. I was so angry that I felt like waking up Janice right at that moment and leaving the house with her. So, I guess it means Janice is quitting the voice training class as I said, right? My mother-in-law, with a triumphant look on her face, asked Paul and me. All right, but remember, this is not a music conservatory, so please absolutely do not do anything that Janice would dislike. I know that, you know. I'm not uneducated like you. I said what I had to say at least, knowing she'd never back off, and I let her go home for the day. That night, my husband apologized for his mother's behavior, but I did not even want to see his face. I ignored him and went to bed. Next morning, I told my daughter Janice, "From today, instead of going to the voice training class, let's have Grandma teach you to sing here at home, all right?" When she heard it, she looked very sad, but said nothing and just nodded. I'm sorry. Seeing her like that, all I could do was apologize. Then, come noon, my mother-in-law arrived at our home. "Janice, starting today, Grandma is going to teach you to sing even better." She said this to my daughter with a smile. No sooner had the lesson started than my mother-in-law's teaching style became more and more strict within an hour. "You're wrong. You're making the same mistake at the same place. Do it again." That's why I didn't want her to teach. I knew it would turn out like this. "Mother-in-law, this isn't what we agreed to, is it? Could you be a bit gentler?" "What are you talking about? I'm being gentle. Don't interfere. Why don't you quietly do some housework that you can hardly handle?" 4 hours passed, and at last my mother-in-law's lesson ended. "Well, see you tomorrow. Remember to practice what we did today." With that, she left, seemingly pleased with herself. "If I'm going to get yelled at this much, I don't want to sing anymore." Seated in her chair, Janice said to me, I harbored an intense hatred for my mother-in-law, like I'd never felt before, for taking away what my daughter enjoyed and only caring about her own satisfaction. This cannot go on. I won't let my mother-in-law have her way. Her singing lessons continued in the days that followed. However, after about a week, Janice told me, "I don't want Grandma to teach me anymore. I don't want to sing." Given my mother-in-law's way of teaching, I thought it couldn't be helped. You don't have to force yourself. If you want to quit, that's okay too. So, you don't want to go back to the voice training class? It was something she had started because she wanted to, and I, for my part, wanted her to continue, so I asked her that. "If it's that class?" It seemed that Janice hadn't come to hate singing itself. It appears that the harsh words from her grandmother and the lack of praise, even when she felt she did well, were making it unenjoyable for her. "Why don't you go back to your voice training lessons and give it another shot?" I asked Janice. As if she hadn't been upset moments before, she perked up and nodded enthusiastically. "So I'm sorry to say this to you, Grandmother, but from tomorrow, Janice will be returning to her original voice training classes." The next day, I relayed Janice's feelings to her grandmother over the phone. "How can she whine about giving up after just a week? Isn't it your fault for raising such a weak-minded child?" "Well, it might be, but even though you graduated top of your class from a prestigious music college, it seems that's the only way you know how to teach. Janice told me that she preferred her voice training teacher." As I retorted, the grandmother was fussing and fuming over the phone, but I ignored her and hung up. Whether she was top of her class or not, it was quite satisfying that her own teaching method had led to her being disliked by her granddaughter, who preferred her voice training teacher. After that, the visits from the grandmother ceased. I've spoken to your mother and told her it was okay if she didn't come to teach anymore. Janice said she didn't want it anymore either. I also feel like I've done something unforgivable to Janice. Back in the day, my mother was very strict with me about music, so I couldn't say anything. But I thought she wouldn't be so harsh on her granddaughter. I'm really sorry. That night, when I relayed this to my husband, Paul, he seemed deeply regretful and apologized. I was so angry when Paul suggested quitting Janice's voice training class and having the grandmother teach her instead that I almost felt like punching him. But fortunately, Janice didn't come to hate music, so I decided to forgive him. 2 weeks later, Paul said, "My sister is getting married in a month, and she asked us to perform." I had never performed at someone else's wedding before. What kind of performance is she expecting? I was planning to bring a few people from my band and do a small concert, but my sister really wants you and my mother to sing as well. I wasn't particularly thrilled about the idea, but hearing that the grandmother would also be performing, I reluctantly accepted Paul's suggestion. So, does that mean I'll be singing with your mother? Well, yeah, that's how it seems. Singing with my mother-in-law, of all people. I wondered if it would be all right. But if I happen to sing better than her at this performance, I wonder what she'll say. I started practicing the very next day, but there was no sign of my mother-in-law practicing at all. "Mother, aren't you going to practice?" "I'm fine. I'm much better than you even without practicing. After all, practice is something that people like you who are not very good need to do." I tried asking because I was curious, but the only response from my mother-in-law was sarcasm. I decided it was a waste of time to engage with her and focused on my own preparations. After we decided what song to perform, I also increased the frequency to get my voice training lessons. I was sick of being ridiculed by my mother-in-law. And, above all, I was anxious about singing in public after such a long time without proper training. And on the day of my sister-in-law's wedding, the ceremony went smoothly, and the time for the entertainment had finally come. First, my husband Paul took the stage and began to play his music. As expected, given he plays regularly, he was confident and exuded an elegant aura. I was utterly mesmerized by Paul's performance. "I'm not feeling well today. Could you sing on your own?" Then, out of the blue, my mother-in-law told me to sing solo. "What? That's so sudden, it's not fair." "Well, there's nothing we can do about it, or what? Are you too embarrassed to sing in front of others because you're uneducated and ugly?" She said this without a hint of remorse. Okay, I know it. She's doing this on purpose, I thought, and decided to retort. Being uneducated and ugly? I've practiced hard, so I won't be embarrassed singing in front of others. I asked you several times if you needed to practice, but you showed no signs of doing so. Could it be that you're actually a terrible singer? That's not true. My mother-in-law raised her voice in response to my question. The people around us began to stir, wondering what was going on. Sorry, it's nothing. I got up from my seat, apologized to those around me, and then pressed my mother-in-law further. Graduating as valedictorian from the music college, you sure talk big about teaching others, huh? Are you running away because you're embarrassed to sing with me since I'm better? I whispered this in her ear. What did you say? There's no way that's true. If I sing with a low-educated, ugly person like you, it would only throw me off. Didn't your parents teach you that? You and your parents are truly incompetent. She disparaged me as being uneducated and ugly, and even insulted my parents in front of everyone. Embarrassed and angry, I wanted to leave right at that moment. But if I ran away now, it would just make her happy. What are you doing just sitting there? Hurry up and go. Okay then, I will. Excuse me. Just as Paul's performance ended, I took his place on stage. I was supposed to sing with my mother-in-law, but due to her not feeling well, I'll be singing solo. Instead of the song I was supposed to sing with her, I chose an opera song I used to sing a lot when I was competitive, an aria from The Marriage of Figaro. And so I began to sing. At that moment, perhaps due to the vocal training I had done, my condition was excellent, and I was able to produce the most beautiful vibrato I'd ever achieved. It was amazing. The audience were mesmerized by my singing, saying things like, "Wow, her voice is incredible," and "Is she a professional?" When I finished singing my song without any hitches, the audience gave me a standing ovation, showering me with thunderous applause. Congrats on your wedding, sister-in-law. You know, I used to be the choir leader in high school. It's been a few years since I last sang in front of an audience, so I was a bit nervous. How did I do? Thanks so much for listening. After making this statement, I returned to my seat. My daughter, all starry-eyed, pleaded, "Mom, your voice was so beautiful. Can you teach me next time?" Witnessing this, my mother-in-law, with her jealousy on full display, said in a huff, "Humph, anyone can sing like that. Don't get ahead of yourself." She continued, never missing a chance to belittle my singing. Just as I thought the entertainment segment was over, my sister-in-law unexpectedly said, "Mother-in-law, you should sing too." Words that I didn't expect came out from my sister-in-law. My mother-in-law was taken aback and looked at her daughter in confusion, asking, "Me? I've never heard you sing, Mom, and since you taught me so much about music when I was young, I'd really love to hear you sing." My sister-in-law expressed this with pure honesty. The attendees chimed in, "Mother-in-law, you should definitely sing." Words had gotten around that my mother-in-law was a top graduate from a prestigious music school, and the crowd grew increasingly excited for her performance, creating an atmosphere where she felt she had to sing. "Well, with all this, I guess you have to sing now, don't you?" I did not hesitate to add so. All right, if you insist," she responded, heading to the stage. The moment my mother-in-law took the stage, the energy in the room peaked. But as she began to sing, "Wait, no way. I might even be a better singer," such murmurs could be heard throughout the crowd. She must have heard them as well. My mother-in-law's voice did seem off, but even accounting for that, her singing was dreadful. She always criticized others for their singing, but her pitch was all over the place. Honestly, I felt I was still the better singer. The atmosphere grew awkward as her performance ended. Unlike when I sang, the venue was filled with cold atmosphere, and the applause was sparse. Everyone acted as if they'd seen something they shouldn't have, as if her turn had never happened. Upon returning to our table, my mother-in-law, her face flushed red, shouted at me, "That's why I didn't want to sing. If you had sung properly, my daughter wouldn't have asked me to do this." She said to me with such an angry tone, but I didn't understand why. When my sister-in-law asked her mother to sing, it seemed to me that she genuinely wanted the wedding to be blessed by the voice of her mother, who had been sternly teaching her about music since her childhood. "Do you think so? To me, it seems she genuinely wanted you to sing." I told my honest thought to my mother-in-law. "No way. I'm sure she knew I'm bad at singing, and this is her way of embarrassing me." I was utterly astonished at her response. She had always criticized others' music and performances, yet she herself didn't want to sing in public because she's bad at it? She never hesitates to complain about others' music, but she is like, "I don't accept complaints, although I'm a bad singer myself." Such a self-centered attitude won't be accepted. My daughter Janice might have her newfound love for music crushed by her grandmother. I could no longer bear my mother-in-law's attitude. So, a person who studied at a prestigious music school and criticizes others' music is just doing so because she can only sing this badly. But mother-in-law, isn't it great? You are able to sing alone without having to sing with a terrible singer like me. I responded to my mother-in-law with a sarcastic tone. How dare you say that? It's your fault that I had to embarrass myself. It's not nice to say that in front of your daughter. I'm sure she's satisfied hearing her mother singing. As I spoke these words, my mother-in-law fell silent. There was a stir amongst those who'd heard what I had said to my mother-in-law. But other than that, the ceremony went on smoothly and ended without any problems. 2 days after the ceremony, my mother-in-law stormed into our house. I just can't let it go. I want you to apologize for what had happened. I was surprised by her sudden visit, but I retorted. What exactly am I supposed to apologize for? I wasn't aware that your singing was that bad. Instead, I think you owe us an apology, I replied. What do you mean? I have absolutely nothing to apologize for. It's your fault I was forced to sing that song I hated and embarrass myself. No, not to me, to Janice. Because of you, Janice almost came to hate the music that she had started to enjoy. Even though you graduated from a prestigious music school, why would you torment a child who has developed an interest in music just because things didn't go your way? Is that what you learned from your music school? I haven't received any musical training from you, yet I was able to sing at the reception and even received applause. How about you, mother-in-law? Shall I give you some singing lessons? I'll teach you thoroughly. My mother-in-law was speechless hearing what I said. If you have nothing else to discuss, please leave. I won't tolerate you interfering with our daughter or my husband's music anymore. Upon hearing this, my mother-in-law left our home without another word. Her shoulders slumped in defeat. I felt a sense of satisfaction from being able to retaliate so fiercely in her of expertise music. It was indeed worth continuing my voice training since my youth. Without the voice training, I might not have been able to receive such applause at my sister-in-law's wedding reception. I wonder how my mother-in-law, who has always boasted about graduating top of her class from a prestigious music school, felt being scolded this way by someone like me, who only has a high school diploma and was just a choir member. To be honest, I felt a sense of poetic justice towards my mother-in-law. I thought, serves her right. She shouldn't act so haughty anymore. It's been a month since the wedding ceremony of my sister-in-law, and now my mother-in-law occasionally visits our house, but she doesn't complain about my daughter's singing anymore. I actually didn't mind my mother-in-law visiting, since she did not say anything about music anymore. My daughter, Janice, who has improved a lot in her singing recently, is challenging a slightly difficult song, given as an assignment in her class. Mom, this song is hard, but I'll try to sing it beautifully, she declared, practicing enthusiastically. That's great. You do your best. You'll definitely do well. Although I love singing, don't know much about the technical aspects, so I had no idea what was difficult about the song. But seeing my daughter working so hard, that's all I could say. On that day, my mother-in-law, who happened to be visiting our house, observed the interaction between me and Janice and said, Erica, this song is not something you can handle by just doing your best. Janice, listen well. You should do it like this. It was incredibly kind and patient of her, which was unimaginable given how she used to be, to explain until Janice understood. Oh, thank you, Grandma. It's easier to sing now, Janice said as she listened intently to her grandmother's advice, working hard to master her assignment. Erica, I used to look down on everyone doing music without graduating from a music college. But after meeting someone like you, who can sing so beautifully without a music degree, I changed my mind. After all, we should enjoy music. Could you teach me to sing next time? My mother-in-law said that, looking at Janice singing. I was surprised to hear such a thing all of a sudden, but I'm sure the sarcastic comment I made after my sister-in-law's wedding had its effect. My lessons are tough, you know, I grinned as I replied to my mother-in-law. Oh, I won't do anything horrible anymore. I feel sorry for Paul, too, although it's too late now. But if you're going to be tough, Erica, I'm prepared. After hearing that from my mother-in-law, I felt assured that she won't say anything about her music anymore. Although a lot had happened, the tension between my mother-in-law and me eased off. And since then, we've often gone to karaoke together, becoming close enough to sing together. I hope that one day, when Janice becomes even better at singing, the four of us, me, Paul, Janice, and my mother-in-law, can have a fun jam session.
I'm the eldest son's wife, but that doesn't mean I plan to get along well with you, Nicole. I want to maintain a proper distance. These were the words of my brother's wife when they had just gotten married, and the three of us, my mother, my sister-in-law, and I, were having a tea together. While it's true that maintaining a proper distance is important, I still remember being stunned by her audacity to say such a thing to us directly. The reason we had tea together was because my mother wanted to build a closer relationship with Amanda. Apparently, she didn't realize that my mother was trying to be considerate, and I was disappointed about that. After we got home, I sighed at her words and attitude. My mother, smiling, a bit lonely, saying, "She must still be feeling tense." My name is Nicole. I'm a 33-year-old office worker. I've been living with my mother in our family home since my father passed away from illness 10 years ago. My brother and younger brother both have their own families, but I have no plans to marry yet. It's not that I don't want to get married, but I find my job fulfilling and am satisfied with my current life. One evening, my smartphone rang. The display showed my sister-in-law's name, Amanda. She just had her first child recently. It was very unusual for her to call me. As I answered the call, she said, "It's been a while, Nicole. I just gave birth the other day, but I haven't heard anything from you. Normally, I would expect my sister-in-law to offer congratulations on the birth." I thought to myself, she hasn't changed a bit, as she began the conversation with such a blunt statement. She is the same age as me and has been married to my brother for 7 years. My brother is head over heels for her. I would never say it out loud, but I have never liked her. She tends to make sarcastic remarks and has a nagging way of speaking. For some reason, she doesn't act this way towards my brother. Amanda, it's been a while. I should have contacted you sooner. I apologize. Congratulations on your childbirth. I had been busy with work, and since my sister-in-law had just given birth, I thought she would be busy too, so I held back from reaching out, but that seemed to have backfired. However, in her case, it would be wise not to mention that. I had once apologized to her for something and used work as an excuse, only to receive an annoying response like, "Are you trying to show off how busy you are because I only work part-time? You don't have to brag about it." Of course, I had no intention of showing off. As I apologized sincerely, she snorted. "Well, whatever. You should come see the baby sometime soon. She's a cute little girl. You're enjoying your single life and working hard, so I'm expecting a nice baby shower gift from you." That's her real purpose, I thought, feeling disheartened. Although the baby is my adorable niece, and her birth is indeed something to celebrate, I couldn't help but wonder why my sister-in-law had to make such unnecessary remarks. I just wish she would let me offer my congratulations with genuine feelings in my own time. All right, I'll come visit with my mother on a day that works for you. "Oh, please don't bring your mom. I'm not good with her. Besides, I already introduced her to the baby when we left the maternity ward. We even got the congratulatory money from her." I felt irritated by her words. What kind of attitude is that? It's as if she's saying there's no other reason to meet my mother other than for a celebratory gift. Besides, is it right for me to hear about how difficult her mother-in-law, my mom, is to deal with? Ah, Okay, I understand. Please let me know a convenient day, and sorry, but I need to go. I need to take my dinner break now. Amanda's insensitive remarks weren't anything new. But I didn't want to feel any more uncomfortable, so I just replied casually and hung up the phone. I felt very uneasy. Seeing me come down the stairs with a scowl, my mom, who was preparing dinner, tilted her head. I thanked her for the meal she served and told her about the conversation with Amanda. I was so upset, I had to vent to my mom. Well, that's too bad, but there will be plenty of opportunities to see the baby, my mom said nonchalantly, seemingly unfazed by Amanda's words. But it's been quite a while since she married my brother, and her attitude is just too much. Your anger on my behalf makes me happy. By the way, I couldn't give it to you the other day because I wasn't ready, but could you take this with you as well? Despite hearing my complaints, my mom still wanted to give an additional gift. I smiled bitterly at the wrapped present. Mom, you're really too kind. All right, I'll make sure to give it. It's a celebration for the baby, after all. My mom nodded with a smile. There's a lot to think about when it comes to my sister-in-law, but it's for my adorable niece. I decided to think of it that way. On the day I went to Amanda's house, I ran into my younger brother's wife, Emily, on the way. She was also invited to the house, just like me. Emily married my brother 4 years ago and quickly became pregnant and gave birth. She's currently pregnant with her second child. I might be rude to compare, but unlike my other sister-in-law, Emily is cheerful and honest, and she gets along well with my mom and me. When we arrived at Amanda's house, she greeted us with an unusually good mood. She led us into the living room, where the sleeping baby lay in a crib. The innocent sleeping face soothed my heart. We laughed together in hushed voices so as not to wake the baby, and took our seats on the sofa. After Emily handed over her gift, I followed by giving mine. Here are some blankets, toys, and this, a baby outfit that my mom made. She unwrapped the package containing the clothes my mother made. Upon examining the contents, she let out a heavy sigh. Handmade? That's worse than trash. Even though she's the grandmother to her eldest son's child, why does she give us such a cheap-looking gift? The other items aren't great either. I'm so disappointed in her. She carelessly threw my mother's handmade clothes on the floor, and my other sister-in-law quickly picked them up. That's so terrible. Our mother-in-law took her precious time making them and wrapping them so neatly. If you don't want them, I'd be more than happy to take them. My sister-in-law laughed dismissively at Emily's words. Really? If you want them that badly, go ahead. Her tone was blatantly condescending. If you think they're worth keeping, please do. I'm sure my mother would be happy too. At my words, my other sister-in-law's face lit up. I'm so happy. These are like high-end brand clothes. When the baby is born, I'll dress them in these. I can't wait. Her innocent joy was somehow comforting. If my mother were here, she would probably say the same thing. Wait, what do you mean by high-end brand? She seemed utterly confused. After the 3 of us siblings became independent, my mother started selling her handmade crafts online, using her skills in sewing and other hobbies. Compared to when she started, her work is now considered a high-end handmade brand due to the quality of materials and design. The handmade aspect makes them rare and valuable, and she even received collaboration requests from luxury brands. Amanda had no interest in me or my mother and kept her interactions to a minimum, so she was unaware of this. My brother should have known, but perhaps he didn't feel the need to mention it. After I finished explaining, she said, I never heard about that. Wait, that changes things. Give it back. She tried to snatch the clothes back from my other sister-in-law. I quickly intervened, sitting between them, and managed to keep her safe. What would you do if something happened to Emily and her unborn baby? My sharp tone seemed to hit a nerve with my sister-in-law. Her face turned red, and she started venting her emotions like steam from a kettle. Nobody would think that clothes made by my mother-in-law as a hobby would be a high end. It's like a trick, you sly woman, she began. Nicole gets to continue doing what she loves even though we're the same age, and it's not fair. She continued. Emily, ignoring me as the elder sister-in-law, had a baby right away and is already expecting her second. It's so sneaky. Show some consideration and hold back a little. In summary, that was her rant. Most of it had nothing to do with the current situation, and it seemed like the majority was jealousy towards me and Emily. I got the feeling that I finally understood why she was always so harsh towards my family members other than my brother. Upon getting married, she quit the job she loved and switched to part-time work to focus on housework and trying to conceive. In the midst of that, she may have harbored resentment towards me for having the freedom to work and my other sister-in-law for her quick pregnancies. But that's a separate issue. It doesn't mean she can say whatever she wants or destroy someone's heartfelt gift, whether it's high-end or not. Amanda's emotions exploded, and she started crying loudly, which caused the baby to cry as well. As Emily, who was worried about the baby, tried to approach, Amanda restrained her, yelling, Don't touch my child! Emily and I were at a loss for what to do when my brother came home from work. Seeing his wife and baby crying in this strange situation, my brother's face contorts. What happened? Well, as I explained the situation to my brother, who picked up the crying baby to soothe it, he apologized to Emily and me. I'm sorry. Amanda might be a bit neurotic from her first time parenting. Emily, I'm sorry to trouble you when you're pregnant. Are you feeling okay? His concern for Emily's well-being seemed to upset his wife even more, and she yelled at him. Don't flirt with someone else's husband when you're pregnant! My brother scolded her, saying, Stop it! But his wife just whimpered and started crying again. I'll handle it, so you two don't worry and go home. I'm sorry things turned out like this, even though Amanda invited you over. As my brother looked apologetic, we left their house. Outside, the sun was starting to set, and it was getting dark. I wonder if Amanda's all right. I understand how she feels since I was tense during my first pregnancy, and it was tough mentally. On the way home, despite having been verbally abused, I still worried about Amanda. My mom and Emily are such kind-hearted people. At least it doesn't seem like she was hurt by the harsh words, which makes me feel a bit relieved. Don't worry, my brother's there, so everything will be fine. As I tried to cheer her up, a smile finally returned to her face. A few hours later, after dinner, I returned to my room and picked up my phone to find multiple missed calls from my sister-in-law, Amanda. Yikes! At this point, I had a bad feeling. As I hesitated, my phone vibrated again, and her name appeared on the screen. I wanted to turn the phone off, but, resigning myself to the situation, I answered the call. Why didn't you answer sooner? I responded to a clearly irritated Amanda. I was having dinner. What is my brother doing? He's in the bath now. If he were right there, he'd have stopped her from calling, so it makes sense. My brother takes long baths, so she probably wanted to complain about something while he was not around. Even though I have an idea of what's going on, I asked her, So, what can I do for you? Send another set of baby clothes. At her words, I couldn't help but blurt out, What? Are homemade clothes worse than trash? Stop nagging. It's a high-end brand, right? I want to brag about it on SMS. Ask your mother to make another one. I sighed, fed up with her ridiculous request. which was even more absurd than usual. I wasn't expecting her to apologize, but this was too much. As I was at a loss for words, she became even more aggressive. "What's with the sigh?" Emily says. "I've already gotten mine, and everyone else. Really?" From her tone, I could tell she had called my other sister-in-law before me. She probably claimed the clothes as her own and tried to snatch them. Not realizing how absurd her words and actions were, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. "Shame on you, Amanda. Throwing my mother's heartfelt gift on the floor, calling it worse than trash, then flipping your attitude when you find out it's a high-end brand. Aren't you embarrassed as an adult? If you really want it, apologize to my mother and ask her yourself." I had never been harsh with Amanda before, all because I was considerate of my mother and brother. But I'd reached my limit. My mother knew the whole story about giving the baby clothes to Emily. I don't like the idea that she thinks she can get them by just asking me. She should bow her head and ask for it herself once in a while. "So you're saying all those mean things because it's about my child?" Her voice was shaking after hearing my true feelings. "It has nothing to do with that." I denied it, but she fell silent, and I could hear her sobbing on the other end of the line. She seemed to be quite sensitive when it came to being criticized herself. "Everyone is so cold. I finally gave birth to a baby, and nobody's pampering me. I'm blocked by Emily, ridiculed by you, and my husband won't even take my side. In the end, only David is on my side." A sudden mention of an unfamiliar name made me doubt my own ears. I was shocked to hear that even gentle Emily had blocked her. But she must have said something terrible to her on the phone. Wait, who's David? At my question, she gasped. Realizing that she had let something slip, she seemed to be panicking. As I waited for her to say something, I heard my brother's voice asking, "What's going on?" He must have just gotten out of the bath. She was startled too, and she stammered. No, that's not. David is just an online friend. You're misunderstanding things." I didn't know what the misunderstanding was, but my sister-in-law was desperately making excuses. I suddenly heard my brother's voice as he took over the call and took the phone away from her. "You're talking to Nicole. Sorry, Nicole, but I need to talk to her for a moment." His voice was lower and angrier than usual. I agreed and hung up the phone. It's probably going to be a stormy situation from now on. Later, my brother came to our house to report that he was getting a divorce. First, he apologized for his wife's treatment of our mother's handmade clothes as trash. Amanda felt belittled when she received handmade gifts as presents. This is ironic, considering how she always looked down on Emily, my mother, and me. After the phone call, my brother confronted his wife about the mysterious David. While my brother was busy at work, she met David online and eventually cheated with him in person. Amanda confessed everything. She tried to justify it as a mistake made out of loneliness, but that excuse doesn't hold water. I knew my brother was trying to adjust his work to support his wife's parenting and spend more time with the family, so thinking about his feelings was heartbreaking. Even my usually mild-mannered mother showed her anger toward Amanda. They're going to do a DNA test on the baby just in case. I never imagined that a simple visit to deliver a baby gift would have escalated to this point. In the end, the DNA test disproved the parent-child relationship between my brother and the baby. My brother received a large amount of compensation from his wife and her cheater, and the divorce was finalized. She was dumped by her lover as well, and now she'll likely work day and night. I'm relieved to hear that the baby will be raised by her sensible grandparents, not Amanda. 3 years have passed. My mother's handmade clothes and accessories are still loved by many. Emily and I are, of course, longtime fans. I got married last year and am now pregnant. My mother is already excitedly planning the baby's clothes. My brother, who was deeply hurt by my sister-in-law incident, recently found a new girlfriend. I sincerely hope that he will find true happiness this time.
Hey, what's going on? Where are you right now? Well, I just left the house, like you said. Is there a problem? My name is Emily. I'm a 35-year-old housewife living with my in-laws. My husband Max is on an overseas assignment, so it's just me at home with them. My father-in-law had a stroke last year, leaving him with a bit of paralysis on his left side. Despite that, he's actively working on his rehab and moving his body. As a result, it took some time, but he's recovered enough to handle most of his daily activities. Originally, my father-in-law made a name for himself as an investor. Before marrying Max, I used to work at a brokerage firm, so I really admire him. Living together has given us the chance to often discuss investments and assess management, and I think we've built a very good relationship. My mother-in-law, Helen, is a person who laughs softly and never engages in what people typically call bullying. She seems delighted watching father-in-law and me discuss financial matters. Emily, it's so good for your dad to have someone to talk to. He won't be bedridden, and it looks like we won't have to worry about dementia for a while. The way mother-in-law tenderly supports father-in-law is something I aspire to. I want Max and me to be a couple like them. I really feel that way. However, lately, I've noticed that mother-in-law seems to be struggling more as she sits on the sofa. We had her tested at the hospital and found that she's getting physically weaker. Her blood pressure is also a bit high, and the doctor advised her to take it easy. Mother-in-law, you've been holding down the fort here for so long. Please, take some time for yourself. I said that as I comforted her and took over the housework. But that's not fair to you, Emily. You have to take care of Dad, too. Father-in-law can manage his showers and using the bathroom on his own. All he needs is someone to accompany him on walks and doctor visits. Emily. At this point, I came up with a proposal to reassure my mother-in-law. How about I ask Mom to join Dad on his daily walks? It'll be like a daily walking date for the two of them. I can't believe you, Emily. Well, I guess we'll take you up on your offer until I'm feeling better. Leave it to me. And so, life with my parents-in-law continued peacefully. My only concern was my sister-in-law, Sophia. Sophia constantly throws passive-aggressive comments my way. So, Emily, still no kids? Max is overseas, and these things happen when they happen. Can't even give birth to an heir. What a waste. We'll try to meet your expectations once Max is back in the country. Don't get too comfortable. I also have inheritance rights to this family's assets. It's just like that. I could directly confront her, but it's exhausting, and I don't want to upset my parents-in-law. Ignoring her gracefully is where I show my skills. Maybe Sophia thinks I married into the family to inherit my wealthy father-in-law's assets. It's common to have a mother-in-law, father-in-law feud, but in my case, it's with my sister-in-law. One day, I was having tea with my in-laws on our sunny porch. Emily, I have something to discuss with you. For the first time, mother-in-law looked serious. Yes, mother-in-law, what is it? Actually, Sophia is going to give birth soon, and she wants to temporarily stay at her parents' house to get support from our family. Oh, Is it that time already? That's wonderful news. I sipped my tea as I responded. Given that your father is unwell and have also been under the weather, making you handle the household chores, we're thinking of declining her request. I agree. It wouldn't be fair to impose more on you, Emily. My father-in-law looked genuinely concerned as he spoke. Oh, don't worry about that. I'm sure Sophia will be more comfortable at her parents' house. Besides, you two will be close by to watch over your grandchild. I'm happy to help out. Let's have Sophia come over. Upon hearing my nonchalant answer, my mother-in-law's face clouded even more. Thank you, Emily. To be honest, we'd love to have Sophia here so we can see our grandchild up close. But the way she's been treating you is truly regrettable. Your mother's not feeling her best these days either. In the end, it seems like the burden will fall on you, Emily, and that's concerning. My father-in-law also seemed to worry about me. Sophia has made snide comments to me several times, but for the sake of my in-laws, I choose not to retaliate. This has apparently led to Sophia getting more audacious, in turn causing unnecessary worry for my in-laws. Did I mess up here? Once the baby arrives, Sophia might mellow down. I'd love to see you two enjoy your grandchild. What I truly wanted to say was that I wouldn't be beaten by the likes of Sophia, but I just grinned and bore it. If you say so, then maybe it's okay to invite Sophia. I promise to take care of her as much as I can. My mother-in-law finally showed a smile. My father-in-law also seemed relieved. At first, maybe it was because the baby would be born to their biological daughter. They wanted to be close to the experience. Emily, we're truly sorry, and thank you. Both my father-in-law and mother-in-law bowed their heads. Hey, no need to bow. Let's lift our spirits. Prepare a room for sister-in-law and go shopping. I can't wait. Can I come along to choose some clothes and toys for the grandchild? All three of us laughed, wrapping up the discussion. My stay at my in-laws while sister-in-law gave birth was likely going to be just a month or two. I thought I'd just have to avoid any sister-in-law drama during that short time. That's what I thought. Until that phone call from sister-in-law. My mother-in-law quickly conveyed her consent to sister-in-law, agreeing that she could stay with the family temporarily while she gave birth. After dinner, my phone rang. It was sister-in-law. Hello, sister-in-law. How can I help you? Hey, Emily. I'm going to be staying at our parents' house for my upcoming childbirth. Yes, mother-in-law told me earlier today. Sister-in-law was speaking loudly. Maybe she was in a good mood. My in-laws paused, realizing the call was from sister-in-law, just by the voice leaking from my phone. It was loud enough for them to hear even without a speaker. So, can you get out? What? I couldn't help but raise my voice in shock. My in-laws were equally surprised and jumped a little. I don't even want to look at you. Just seeing you irritates me. Make sure you're out of the house by the time I get back. Sister-in-law, what are you talking about? Tell Mom and Dad you're going on an extended trip or visiting Max. I don't care. Just get out. I want to spend time with my family. Wait, hold on. Normally, I could easily dodge sister-in-law's barbs, but this time I was too shocked to find the right words. Once I'm back, you better come back too. You need to take care of Dad, who needs long-term care, and my weak mom. Sister-in-law! I won't take care of them. That's your job as the daughter-in-law. Be grateful I'm giving you a reason to stay in the house. That's awful. How could you say that about your own parents? Enraged by sister-in-law's cruel words, I couldn't help but shout at her. Ooh, scary. I'll just tell Dad and Mom that you yelled at their pregnant daughter. I clenched my mobile phone and tears started to fall. Using my parents only for the birth and then ignoring them? They're such wonderful, kind people. I couldn't hold back my tears of anger and frustration. Glancing at mother-in-law, I noticed her face was red with rage, tears gathering in her eyes. In that moment, my own sister-in-law told me she wouldn't take care of her family. The frustration was overwhelming. Just then, father-in-law tugged on my sleeve. When I turned around, father-in-law had a note in hand. It's okay. We have a plan. Just agree to what Sophia is saying for now and hang up the phone. I read the note, and father-in-law patted my arm with a reassuring smile. As if to calm my nerves, his touch was light. Seeing father-in-law's smile, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Though my insides were boiling with anger, I was able to regain my composure. Understood. When are you planning to come back? Maybe next Friday. Then I'll make arrangements to leave the house by that time. You should have just listened from the start. Dealing with a stubborn sister-in-law is so tiresome. I have to clean up after dinner, if you'll excuse me. As soon as I hung up the phone, mother-in-law broke down in tears and hugged me. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. To have a daughter who'd say such horrible things. I'm so sorry. Mother-in-law's tears were flowing freely. I'm fine, mother-in-law. You must be the one feeling terrible after hearing all of that. I wasn't concerned about what sister-in-law had to say. I could silence her with logical arguments if need be. It's not a big deal. But it's hard to see my mother-in-law cry like this. I'm really very sorry. You've been very patient, my father-in-law sighed. Don't worry about me. What's your plan, though? I asked him, trying to comfort my mother-in-law. Well, turns out there's another person struggling with Sophia. We're planning to discipline her together. Another person having issues with Sophia? I was puzzled. Who else could be dealing with her? We've only got 10 days until Sophia comes home to have her baby and seek the family support. No time for tears. We need to start planning how to handle her. Yes, this is where you, Emily, will prove your worth. My mother-in-law wiped her tears and stood up. My worth? I had no idea what she meant. Shortly after, Evan, Sophia's husband, came to visit. Good evening, everyone. I apologize for Sophia's terrible behavior. Evan bowed to my parents-in-law and me as he entered. Emily, meet the other person who's been grappling with Sophia, my father-in-law said with a smile. Before joining this family, I worked in a brokerage firm, as did Evan. We knew each other professionally. I don't mind what she says about me, but I can't forgive her how she talks to you two. I vented my frustration about Sophia to my brother-in-law. He scratched his head and sighed. Look, there's no excuse for her. Even when I tried to correct her, she loses her temper. Her already spoiled nature has gotten worse with her pregnancy. My own daughter told Emily to leave while she stays here to give birth. Can you believe it? My mother-in-law was angrier than I had ever seen her. I get why you and my father-in-law get along. You're in the same line of work. It seemed fun. Sophia probably just couldn't stand it. Wait, so she's jealous because I get along with you and my mother-in-law? I was dumbfounded. She hurt her parents this much out of petty jealousy? And there's one more unbelievable thing. My brother-in-law began to talk about Sophia's actions. Are you kidding me? This makes no sense. I couldn't believe my ears. My hands were shaking from anger. I'm at a loss, too. I've even consulted with my father-in-law about what to do. My mother-in-law looked like she was throwing in the towel. At this point, I was fuming. She plans to rely on her parents' home like nothing happened. She should have been confronted head-on. In hindsight, I regretted my naivety. Father-in-law sighed, looking disappointed. Add this latest mess to the mix, and I'm done giving her any slack. She's my daughter, but enough is enough. Your conversations with father-in-law have finally paid off. My conversations with father-in-law? Wait a minute, you mean... Something clicked in my mind, recalling a discussion I'd had with father-in-law in the past. We might as well go all in. Get ready, Evan. Yes, father-in-law. Mother-in-law finally cracked a smile. All right, Emily, we've got a busy week to prepare everything. We're going to be busy. Absolutely, mother-in-law. Let's do this. I rolled up my sleeves and followed mother-in-law. The next Friday, as planned, sister-in-law returned home temporarily to seek family support for her childbirth. I wonder if that annoying woman finally left. Now I can just laze around here for a while. Maybe I should just move back home for good. Sister-in-law hummed as she walked onto the property. Then, right in front of the house, she dropped her bags and froze. What is this? What stood before her was, indeed, her parents' home. Well, it used to be their home. Now the gate was locked, the name plaque removed, and a for sale sign was prominently displayed. The windows were bare, and the house obviously looked abandoned. What's going on? Why is nobody here? Sister-in-law frantically called both father-in-law and mother-in-law, but neither answered. They'd had enough and blocked her number. Even social media was blocked. Why aren't Mom and Dad answering? Maybe she will... Sister-in-law seemed to get the idea to call me. Hello, sister-in-law, what's going on? I answered her desperate call, cool as a cucumber. Sister-in-law, anything but composed, started shouting right away. What's the meaning of this? My parents' house is for sale! She was loud enough that father-in-law and mother-in-law could probably hear without even needing speakerphone. I moved the phone away from my ear and replied, That house and the property have been sold. There's no place for you to temporarily stay while seeking family support for childbirth. Sold? What do you mean? We were told to leave by you, so we did. Don't joke with me. How can my parents' house be sold just because you left? Well, the house is in my name. Why keep it just for you? What are you talking about? You sold the house without telling my dad? You thief! I'll sue you! Seemingly forgetting she's pregnant, sister-in-law was yelling in a fit of rage. I let out an exaggerated sigh. Did you not hear what I said, sister-in-law? The house is in my name. So why is my parents' house in your name? That's insane! Because I bought it when father-in-law got discharged after his stroke. You bought it? Yes, father-in-law had become somewhat downhearted after recovering from a stroke. He'd lost confidence, having stepped away from his investments during the recuperation. That's when we started talking about restructuring assets. My husband can't act quickly. He's usually abroad for work. And if we left it up to selfish sister-in-law, she'd probably only take the assets that suited her. Father-in-law, how about we liquidate all assets into cash? That would make management easier. I suggested we convert all the assets to cash, making it easier for father-in-law to manage. That's when I purchased the family home, using savings from my single days and from my husband. By putting it in my name, I took on all the tedious procedures like property taxes. We let my parents-in-law continue to live there, so they could spend the rest of their lives in the home they loved. That was until sister-in-law messed it all up. What are you doing? Where are you? We left the house, just like you asked. Anything else? Don't mess with me! Where are Mom and Dad? They'd never allow this. Sister-in-law still seems to think her parents are on her side. It's almost laughable how naive her thinking is. Father-in-law and mother-in-law are with me. We sold the house, but we've arranged another one. Then I'm coming there too. That's not possible. You're blocked by father-in-law and mother-in-law, remember? They don't want to see you. I say it coldly. Sister-in-law seems taken aback, especially when I mention being blocked. You may not have noticed, sister-in-law, but father-in-law and mother-in-law heard that phone call when you told me to leave. Sister-in-law's face visibly pales. Her earlier bravado instantly deflates. She clearly had no idea they'd heard that call. Listen, can you tell Mom and Dad it's a misunderstanding? I'm about to have a baby. I need help. It's going to be tough postpartum. Sister-in-law changes her tune, suddenly playing the victim. That's when I play my final card. Why not ask the guy you've been cheating with for help? How do you know about that? The unbelievable thing brother-in-law told me about was sister-in-law's affair. We knew because the timing of sister-in-law's pregnancy coincided with brother-in-law's long business trip. Brother-in-law already had screenshots and other evidence of the affair. Sister-in-law had planned for brother-in-law to raise the child she was expecting with her affair partner. I gotta tell you, brother-in-law is pretty angry too. Wouldn't be surprised if you get dumped, I say in a half-joking tone. Then the phone abruptly hangs up. She's probably scrambling to call brother-in-law right now. Brother-in-law has already expressed his intentions to divorce and seek alimony. My in-laws are cutting off communication with sister-in-law and moving to exclude her from any inheritance. We're leaving our estate in the hands of Max and Emily, they decided. Emily's involvement has made it so much easier. The estate is just money now. It really simplifies the management and paperwork, they add. Father-in-law had recorded the call that angered them from halfway through. With the evidence held by my in-laws and brother-in-law, sister-in-law lost both her family and her share of the inheritance. A month has passed since. Sister-in-law and her husband Evan are now divorced. She faced indisputable evidence of her affair and was hit with a hefty settlement in divorce court. Apparently, she left the home she shared with brother-in-law, pregnant belly and all. Word is she gave birth alone and quietly, and now lives in an old public housing unit, raising the child by herself. Struggling to care for the baby on her own, she receives help from no one. Why is nobody calling me? I'm tired. I'm lonely. I'm broke, she laments. Rumor has it, even her affair partner abandoned her just before the baby was born. She hasn't been able to establish paternity or receive child support. Sister-in-law ended up living on temporary assistance for needy families while paying off the alimony debt. She has to find a job and support herself before she can start repaying her debt. When will sister-in-law ever be debt-free? If she truly loved and valued the in-laws, even with a child from her affair, she wouldn't have ended up alone. The child is innocent and is the first grandchild for the in-laws. If sister-in-law can genuinely apologize for her mistakes, both we and the in-laws are open to helping her. Today, I'm having tea with the in-laws in our new home. Emily, what's your take on the Willowbrook Mart? Well, I still think they will rise. What's your opinion, father-in-law? I'm inclined to think they'll go up, but I can't be sure. Father-in-law was looking puzzled when mother-in-law peeked at the papers. Oh, talking about Willowbrook Mart. They're really popular right now for their new desserts, she said, laughing, and we both chuckled. Your mother-in-law seems to know more about the stores than we do. Having mother-in-law check out the stores of companies we're interested in investing in is a good research strategy. It's not about the money. I genuinely love these wonderful in-laws. Ever since becoming estranged from sister-in-law, I've been free from her influence. With my expertise in asset management, I've been able to alleviate the in-laws' concerns for their retirement. As I await my husband's return, my days are filled with peaceful smiles.
I'm Emily, a 32-year-old working mom. I just got married to Alexander, who was my classmate in college. We're enjoying the honeymoon phase of our marriage. To be honest, we might be so lovey-dovey that it surprises people around us. But that's how it is. We've been through a lot before tying the knot, so it was worth the wait. Alexander, my husband, proposed to me 5 years after we graduated from college, when I was 27. We both were well-adjusted to adult life, and the timing felt just right. Of course, I had no reason to say no. Sure, let's get married. When I accepted his proposal right away, Alexander seemed shocked. Are you sure? You're really going to marry me? Why wouldn't I? We've been dating for 7 years. Did you really think I'd say no now? Well, yeah, but still, as a guy, it's nerve-wracking. What if you had turned me down? You do have a cute side. There's no way I'd say no. In fact, I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. With that, I lunged into Alexander's arms, and he hugged me back gently. You'd think a couple so in love would get married right away. But it wasn't that simple. The reason it took 5 years from the proposal to the wedding was largely due to Alexander's mom, my future mother-in-law, Isabella. I absolutely oppose this marriage. There's no way Alexander should get married. I won't allow it. When we went to Alexander's family home to announce our engagement, Isabella vehemently opposed it. She didn't have a specific reason. She simply loved her son too much and didn't want to lose him to another woman. Mom, it's not up to you to allow or disallow this. Alexander wants to get married, and you should show respect for his decision. Alexander's sister Grace, now my sister-in-law, also supported us. Besides, Mom, you knew Emily and Alexander have been together for a long time. Emily has even visited our home multiple times. Grace had already moved out to start her own family, but she'd come back home for summer vacations and New Year celebrations, so we'd met a few times. You knew I'd get married someday, right, Mom? Thinking you'll marry eventually and rushing into it are two different things. Once you're married, it's not so easy to just break up, you know. As if thinking about breaking up is any consolation.
Anyway, I oppose this marriage. If you're dead set on it, do it in front of my tombstone. With Mom saying that, neither Alexander nor I could push forward with marriage against her wishes. To be honest, for a split second, we considered actually getting married in front of her tombstone. 5 years later, thanks to our relentless persuasion and some help from my father-in-law, William, and Grace, we finally got the green light for marriage. The joy of actually being able to tie the knot felt so much greater because of the challenges we faced. Now we can be affectionate without a care in the world, and I can say yes to romantic moments anytime. The only thing casting a shadow on this newlywed bliss is the upcoming holiday. We were on our honeymoon during the summer, so we didn't visit my in-laws' house. That's why Isabella has been hounding me to come to this holiday.
Should I just go by myself? Emily might feel awkward. How about we say we're each going to our own parents' houses for the holidays?
Alexander offers a solution, but it would likely provoke Isabella. No, it's fine. Isabella finally approved of our marriage, so I think she's accepted me. Plus, we'll have William and Grace there. So we decided to visit my in-laws' house together. The road to marriage had its hurdles, but now I'm a part of this family. I was hopeful that Isabella and I would finally get along. That was naive of me. The moment we arrived at the in-laws' house, it became clear. As we reached the entrance, Isabella came out specifically to greet Alexander. "Ah, Alexander, welcome back. Come on in." Isabella takes Alexander's hand and welcomes him inside. I try to follow through the entrance. The door abruptly slams shut right in front of my face. What? Stunned, I stand there. Was I just locked out? After a moment, the door reopens. "Sorry about that. Didn't notice you. I didn't expect you to be together." Isabella offers an awkward smile. She probably got scolded by Alexander inside. I get the feeling Isabella only agreed to this marriage because she was pressured by others. She doesn't truly accept me, and it brings me down. I bet this long weekend is going to be filled with similar situations. It's going to be tough. Sadly, my hunch was right on the money. It seems Isabella decided to turn me into her personal punching bag as a trade-off for consenting to the marriage. She's been pulling every passive-aggressive trick in the book on me. First, she tries to dump house chores on me. "Emily, could you please take care of weeding the garden? After that, you can tidy up the barn." But Alexander jumps in before I even get a chance to reply.
"Do we really need to weed? Why not just use some weed killer later? We just got here. Don't make her work. And what's this about tidying the barn? How's she supposed to know where things go when she never even goes in there?"
When that fails, she resorts to belittling my family. "We recently received a gift from Emily's family. I'm not one to complain about gifts, but it didn't really suit my taste. Their sense of giving is somewhat off." This time, William comes to my defense.
"Didn't suit your taste? You ate it all up. Even took my share. Quite bold of you to say that after the fact."
Yet Isabella's campaign of petty annoyances doesn't end there. When Grace comes over with her kids, she starts making digs about children. "I wonder when Alexander's child will be born. You know they say if a couple doesn't have kids in 3 years, it leads to divorce." Grace laughs it off. "Come on, Mom. Alexander and Emily are still newlyweds. They've been married less than a year. If they had a child now, it'd be a shotgun wedding." Even at dinner, Isabella keeps up her attempts to make me uncomfortable. We order steak for delivery, but my order is the only one missing a salad. "Mom, what's going on? Are you trying to single out Emily? I've been noticing you picking on her. Are you actually trying to make her uncomfortable?" Grace confronts Isabella, visibly irritated, so I quickly chime in. "No, it's fine. I asked Isabella to leave it out. I'm not big on veggies. The truth is, I have no problem with vegetables, but it's a little white lie to keep the peace." "Really? Well, if that's the case." My intervention cools Grace down. I wish Isabella would understand that I'm doing my best here. I just wish she'd see my kindness. That's how the night went.
Late into the evening, when everyone was relaxed, Isabella spoke to me.
Emily, go ahead and take a shower. You're the last one.
Ah, okay.
I've cleaned the floor since everyone's been in there. I've also added some aromatherapy, so take your time.
Thank you so much. I was touched. It seemed that Isabella had finally accepted me because I had defended her earlier over the salad incident. I felt relieved. My earlier act of consideration had not been in vain. From now on, Isabella probably wouldn't harass me over trivial matters. Feeling elated, I hummed a tune on my way to the bathroom. But the moment I opened the bathroom door, I was taken aback. Ugh, it stinks. The room was filled with the pungent smell of bleach. What is this? I quickly opened the window. It appeared that bleach had not only been spread on the walls and floor, but also applied to the shower. The aromatherapy oils had mixed with the bleach, creating a terrible smell. And it hurt my eyes, too. With the window wide open, I took a cold shower in the chilly bathroom. I was freezing. This can't be another prank. She must have forgotten to rinse the bleach when cleaning the bathroom. It has to be that. Still smelling a faint scent of bleach, I reassured myself while scrubbing with a sponge. I didn't want to believe that Isabella had intentionally smeared bleach in the shower, especially after feeling grateful to her earlier. After exiting the bathroom, I asked her, Isabella, the bathroom had a strong smell of bleach. Did you forget to rinse it?
Oh, wasn't that the aroma? I splurged on an expensive foreign brand, so maybe it smells different than the American ones.
With that explanation, I had no choice but to believe her. Is that so? Isabella must have gotten confused between aroma oils and bleach because of her age. She had gone out of her way to clean the bathroom for me. I wanted to interpret it in a positive light, so I decided not to press the issue further and tried to forget it as some mistake. However, it was wishful thinking on my part. It seemed Isabella assumed she could get away with anything concerning her daughter-in-law, since I hadn't said anything. The next day, I was out for a walk in the neighborhood around my in-laws' house when it suddenly started to pour. Without an umbrella, I panicked. Rushing back to my in-laws' house, Isabella yelled,
Oh my goodness, you're soaked! Take a shower, you'll catch a cold.
I was touched once again by Isabella's kindness as she showed concern for my well-being. Thank you.
I'll get the bathroom ready right away.
Isabella darted into the bathroom. After a few moments, she let me know it was ready, so I headed that way. But then, I was taken aback again. It smells again. The bathroom was once again filled with the odor of bleach. There I stood, in utter disbelief, wearing nothing. 2 days in a row now. There's no more room for doubt. Isabella had intentionally doused the place with bleach, knowing I would shower. The idea that Isabella was looking out for me was a joke. I felt foolish for having thought so, though reluctantly agreeing to marriage due to societal pressure. It became clear that Isabella never accepted me. So I thought to myself, should I just silently endure her harassment? Absolutely not. Should I confront Isabella and kick off a fight? That's one way, but I had a better idea. Let's declare war in a way that really gets to Isabella, the mom who loves her son so much. Wrapping just in a bath towel around me, I walked out of the bathroom toward the living room.
What? Emily, what are you wearing?
Ignoring Isabella's shocked expression, I turned to Alexander, who was sitting nearby. Alexander, want to shower together?
Huh? Together?
He seemed surprised by my scant attire, but even more by my suggestion. Yeah, we always shower together, don't we?
Well, yes, but this is my parents' house, so...
Alexander hesitated, mindful of his parents, but I went all in, seducing him with my eyes. Alexander, you're always saying how you want to do this and that in the bathroom, right? This one is larger than ours. Maybe we can be bolder in a new setting. His throat audibly gulped, just as I'd planned.
How indecent, right in front of us.
Well, we can't help it. We're newlyweds. So, Alexander, what will it be? Better hurry, or I'll start showering without you. With that, I turned and headed back to the bathroom. As expected, a delighted Alexander followed.
Wow, Emily, you're pretty daring. This is kind of exciting.
Sorry to get his hopes up, but this was merely a ploy to get him into the bathroom. Realizing this, Isabella rushed to stop Alexander. Wait, don't go into the bathroom! But it was already too late. As soon as Alexander came into the dressing room, I swung the bathroom door wide open. Immediately, Alexander was hit with the strong smell of bleach emanating from the bathroom.
What is this stench?
Grimacing from the eye-watering smell, I spoke as calmly as I could muster. It's a gift from Isabella. Seems like she's diffusing some more of that expensive aroma oil for us. Turns out this foreign stuff smells like bleach. Who knew?
What are you talking about, Mom? What's going on here?
Alexander stormed back into the living room and confronted Isabella.
Why is there bleach instead of aroma oil? Have you lost your mind? Or is this on purpose?
I didn't.
If someone accidentally drank that shower water or got it in their eyes, do you know how dangerous that would be? Are you trying to make me sick, Mom?
Pressed by Alexander's stern questioning, Isabella let it slip. No, I never intended to make Alexander sick. I didn't think he would be the one using it.
What, so if Emily used it and got sick, that would have been fine?
Isabella caught herself too late and covered her mouth, but the damage was done.
I suspected as much. This was targeted harassment against Emily, wasn't it? You're willing to make her sick just because you dislike her.
I didn't mean. Isabella tried to excuse herself, but I interrupted. The truth is, there was bleach in it yesterday, too. I got rid of it without saying anything.
What?
Not just Alexander, but William and Grace were also shocked by my revelation. I thought I could keep quiet if it meant calming Isabella down. She's so fond of Alexander. I get that she might not like me for marrying him. I believed that she'd come around eventually, but I guess that's not going to happen. I let it all out.
Mom, this is disgraceful. Emily's such a kind person, and yet you harass her like this. We won't be coming back to this house. We're cutting ties with you, Mom.
What? Cut ties? Isabella, who adored her son, was stunned.
You can't be serious. Of course I am. I can't bring my wife back to a home where she's being harmed. What if our future children face the same harm? I will do whatever it takes to eliminate the risks and protect my wife and future children.
At Alexander's firm words, Isabella was thrown into confusion.
Please forgive me. It was just a lapse in judgment. I promise I won't do it again.
Isabella offered a deep apology, but her husband wasn't showing signs of forgiveness. Continuing from where we left off, Grace spoke directly to Isabella. Listen, I'm also done coming back here. I've got my own husband and kids to protect. Mom, do you realize what you did could have been criminal? Emily's okay, thankfully. But what you were planning on doing if something happened? I don't want my children to see their grandmother acting so irresponsibly towards someone she despises. What? You too? I'm sorry. Isabella apologized again, even more sincerely.
Hey, take responsibility for your own actions,
said William, who had been silent all this time.
If you end up estranged from your children, you've got no one to blame but yourself. You've given me a lot to rethink about our life together.
What? Not you too? Isabella was completely taken aback. William's comment about reconsidering their life together likely included considering a divorce at this stage of their lives. If a longtime housewife like Isabella got divorced, she would find herself in a financially unsustainable position. Oh, please forgive me. I'll do anything. Just don't leave me. Isabella clung to William.
First, clean that bathroom.
Angrily, Isabella rushed into the bathroom. After a while, a scream was heard from Isabella. Ah! My eyes hurt. It stinks, Grace muttered. She could just ventilate the room, but the kindness to advise Isabella seemed to have vanished from Grace's heart.
I'm sorry, Emily. I apologize on behalf of my wife.
William apologized to me. It's not your fault, William. Are you really considering divorce?
Well, I had to be harsh. I'll keep a close eye on Isabella so she doesn't cause any more trouble for you and others.
He reassured me. I couldn't help but smile. Thank you. Afterward, Isabella couldn't see her children or grandchildren and led a lonely life. There was no issue in our relationship with William, as we continued to invite him over. Isabella wanted to join him, but she gave up after he warned her that causing any more trouble would lead to divorce. As for Alexander and me, our lives were as loving as ever. Speaking of which, we developed a new signal between us. Whenever we felt like having some intimate time in the bathroom, one of us would just say, "Did you check for any bleach in the bathroom?" Of course, there's no bleach. Then it's a quick transition to quality shower time together. Kind of like our own private bath time version of a yes-no pillow. As for what we actually do in there, well, that's a secret.